Welcome to Inside ArtScroll, where the books that we read and the people that write them come to life. It's a true pleasure to welcome all the way from Ramat Beit Shemesh, Rabbi Nachman Seltzer. Shalom Aleichem, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I was just here. It's great to be back.
It's wonderful to have you as well. We're here to discuss a Rabbi Nachman Seltzer first-time book, the Nachman Seltzer Haggadah. The book is called Haggadah with Stories. It's a Haggadah with fantastic and amazing stories. Rabbi Seltzer, I met a guy who collects old Svarim, and he has the most fascinating collection in the whole world. He doesn't have a single Haggadah in that collection. And I asked him why. And he said his mentor taught him that once you start collecting Haggadahs, there is no end. Because it is the most commented on topic in Yiddishkeit in our history. So my question, Rabbi Nachman Seltzer, is another Haggadah? What were you thinking?
Look, if we be honest, so ArtScroll likes to put out at least 2 or 3 new Haggadahs every year. So Mrs. Zeka came to me, she said, you know what? How about if you were to come out with, take your unique brand of stories and Torah, like maybe something akin to what we do with Zera Shimshon, and like apply that to the Haggadah. So that's the idea behind it. It's like, the truth is, it wasn't my idea. I have to give credit where credit goes, and that's Mrs. Zakon, my editor. It was her idea for me to do this, and she said, I think it would be good for you to do it, and Rabbi Gedalia agreed. And once they came and they liked the idea, so I said, oh, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna go for it. So that's the background over here. Now, the question of, there's so many, but I don't ascribe to that because there's so many books. So if we go with the svara of there's so many books, why write new books? But the answer is, Ein beis medish b'lei chiddush. Everybody adds their own twist and their own. And Baruch Hashem, there's a lot of chidushim in this Haggadah, a lot of beautiful Torah I took from all over the place. It's not a briska Haggadah, but there's from all over, from the Mirror Rosh Yeshivas to Rabbi Victor Miller to really old and Kabbalistic things and Aruch HaShulchan and the Meshech Chochmah and just great story. I went through all my old archive of Pesach stories and I from 20 years ago, and I combined it with new stories from today that just happened, and it's really something. Rabbi Gedalia said like this: let's try to write a user-friendly Haggadah. And I have to tell you, Rabbi Shlomo, I got to tell you, and if I got a present, if somebody gave me this Haggadah as a present, I would be very thankful to them because there's so much. It's so beautiful. You don't have to work hard. It's not a Haggadah where you have to work hard. What does he mean? What is he saying? It's beautiful. It's like delicious. It's like somebody gave you a delicious meal to eat. It just happens with Torah. It's a delicious meal of Torah, and it enhances your Haggadah, your Haggadah, your Seder experience. But it's not just for the Seder. You have a whole week of Chol Hamoed. You can't finish this Haggadah by the Seder, so you have the whole rest of Chol Hamoed. And then you're going to pick up a Seder. Everyone comes home from a trip, and you have a meal with the family. You pick it up. You read a story. You read another story. You have some free time. You pick it up. You read a pshat. You learn another story, and you wait. Next year you'll come across new things that you did. So it's not just for the Seder, but it's very beautiful for the Seder. And I personally would have been very happy to get a Haggadah like this for myself. Anyways, that's where the background of how this came to be.
And I concur because I got it in manuscript form and I read it and it's beautiful and magnificent. And I said to myself, I'm not going to settle for the manuscript. I want the Haggadah. I want to use it for my family on Pesach. So thank you so much. Yeah, I shared with one of my kids about this and he's like, everyone loves Seltzer on Pesach. That's what he said. So you have a little plug for your Haggadah.
That's good. I like that. Somebody said that I was at a hotel now with Shuvu. Shuvu came. They had a mission in Eretz Yisrael, and I was on that mission with them writing about it. And so somebody came over to you and said to me, is it true that there's 70% water in the world? The world is 70% water. I said, yeah. He goes, is it carbonated? I said, no. He goes, then that means the earth is flat then.
You're saying very good. And he told it to you, obviously.
He told it to me. Fantastic. Well, if you're going to go with everyone loves Seltzer on Pesach, then yeah, no.
You have to contend with these jokes. Rabbi Seltzer, can I ask you about your own Seder? Do you share stories that are not part of Yetzias Mitzrayim to bring out the Haggadah, or do you stick to the storyline of Yetzias Mitzrayim? How does your Seder run?
So my Seder runs where there's one thing I try to always include, and that is something which I I'm still not 100% sure if they're going to let me keep it in, but I really want to keep it in. And that's a piece that Rabbi Lopiansky wrote, which to me sums up what the Seder is. And I always try either the beginning or the middle to say this piece. And I see you're nodding, and so you know which piece I'm talking about. And
the letter to his son.
That letter, that is the most incredible letter. And I share it with my students every year, and they want to make copies to take home. This encapsulates what we're trying to do at the Seder. What are we doing at the Seder? And that's a question. What are we doing here? We're reading these things, and a lot of it we don't understand exactly why they included it. But what are we trying to accomplish? And the answer is that we're trying to accomplish one very important thing, and that is the night, the Seder night's the night when we give to our children, we hand over the baton from one generation to the next. Right? He says there's 133 people from Matan Torah until today. That means it's not that many people. And every single one of them, wherever they were in their world, wherever Nisanis they had one job, and that was to give over the Messiah to the next generation. Today, they'll say, in our time, they had October 7th. They had to give over the Messiah despite October 7th. They had to give it over. A father who lived down south, he has to give over the Messiah to his children. Someone who went through the Holocaust, someone who went through the concentration, someone who went through Russia, Siberia, someone who went through the Inquisition, someone who lived in a beautiful life and in France and was rich. But what's the job? The job is to give over the Messiah. That's what we're doing at Seder night. And he says, sometimes I think I'm not doing it well enough, he says. It's tough when you have 132 people balancing on your shoulders.
It's very meaningful. I want you to know something. After I read that the first time many years ago, my children were still younger. Right before the Seder, I got into a little huddle with them, and I shared mamish that message with them. And I said to them, one day you're going to be the tati, and you're going to be at the top of the Seder. You need to ask the questions. You need to understand the experience, because I'm passing it on to you. Mitzvah Shem, I'll be around for many years. But one day, you're going to be the father, and Mitzvah Shem, one day you'll be the grandfather. And it was really interesting to see even my little children really, they were makabel. They took it, and the Seder was very different after that year. And I do it every single year. So I'm so happy you brought that up.
We're on the same page.
100%. We could just keep schmoozing. But just back to the question, do you share stories that are not part of the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim to bring out Yetzias Mitzrayim?
Yes.
How do you do it?
Yeah, so I use Rabbi Zilberstein's Haggadah, and every year I find new things in the Haggadah that are beautiful, and I new stories, and I always do. I enhance. I believe we need to enhance the Torah and stories and your own ideas and your own questions, your own answers to bring out what we're trying to do this time. Because again, it's not just about Maisa b'Bnei Brak. It's not just about that. It's about taking everything that you're reading and making it part of you, because you're giving it over to your children. So how do you do that? You have to find a way to translate everything into something that everyone around the Seder appreciates and comes out with something. It's an experience. It's a Pesach experience. And that's the thing that everyone in Klal Yisrael, even if you're not from, they still feel connected. They want to be part of the Seder. It's something unique. It's something different. Maybe that's the reason why it's been more written about the Haggadah than anything else. It's because that's the essence of Klal Yisrael.
You're bringing up a good point, because I think most people chop this, but I don't know that everyone does. As a father, as a grandfather, it's an achrayus on us to really make the Seder as meaningful as possible. It doesn't happen by itself. You need to prepare. And you need to think it through before. And if it's the Chedushim and it's learning it, et cetera, I feel a great way actually that I'm going to prepare for the Seder this year is by actually using your Haggadah, if you let us.
Please use my Haggadah this year.
And I know ArtScroll's come out with another fantastic one, all-time favorite as well. So buy those Haggadahs if you're a father, and spend time going through them, highlight them, however you do it, but make sure that it's meaningful. And like you say in your introduction to this Haggadah, there's nothing that piques people's interest like stories. And those stories are all in there. Rabbi Seltzer, as I was reading through many of the Pirushim, there were a lot of things that jumped out at me. But I think one very important thing to talk about at the Seder, which you highlighted, is the concept of freedom. In America, let freedom, ring. And freedom's a big thing, and the Western world, freedom's a big thing. But the Seder night's about defining what freedom is, because we went from Avdus to Chayrus. Share with us, what you arrived at in your discussion of Chayrus, of freedom.
So there was something I originally included, which was editorially they chose not to put in, but it was a letter that a Talmud of a yeshiva, one of the yeshivas for guys who struggle, a struggling guy. I'm sure if you think about ArtScroll, it's a particular yeshiva that was very famous, and he wrote a letter about freedom. And what's freedom? And I included it, but he says, and he was talking about being a slave. He said, we're not slaves today, we're free, we can do whatever we want. He said, so slavery, it takes on many forms. He said, slavery could be a slave to a little bag and a little bottle and pills, and you could be a slave to that, he said. And one day you recognize, wait a second, I'm a slave. First you think it's geschmack, you're free. And then you turn around, you realize you're a slave. And then there's the whole journey to how do I get out, how do I get away from being a slave? And how do I get out of the bars, my self-imposed bars, to become a free man? And I think that's the nakuda. It's in every person. We're all, in a certain sense, in our own bars. Every person has things that they struggle with. Every person has things that are hard for them. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu comes and gives us what's freedom. Freedom is the opposite of what we think it is sometimes. I give it a dugma of what I'm talking about. I call it the Carlos and Gabby versus the Waldorf. Let's say any time I went into Carlos and Gabby's, there was like 3,000 things on the menu. And I always felt like I picked the wrong thing. I never walked out happy. I always walked out feeling I got the wrong thing. You go to the Waldorf, there's 5 things on the menu. That's it. You get the right thing. You got a steak, you're done. You go to, what's the nakuda? If you're a person who's not Jewish, a person who, you have a whole world, do whatever you want. And so people do whatever they want. Because they're free to do whatever they want. So they're actually slaves to trying everything society says is an option. And they're not happy about it because you're meshuggah, you go crazy, trying this and trying that, and am I this, am I that, what am I, who am I don't know who I am. If you're a Yid, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells you, this is who you are, this is what you're allowed to do, all of those things are off the table, and you have freedom. You have freedom to be a normal person without chasing a million things, without knowing who you are. You know who you are. You're a free person who knows exactly who he is, and that's freedom. It's the opposite. People think, I can do whatever I want, I'm free. No, you do the opposite. Do whatever you want, you're a slave. You're a slave to freedom. Call it however you want. But and every person needs to find inside themselves, what am I a slave to? How do I free myself from that to be a truly free person? I think that's our goal as Yidden. Not just on Pesach.
Amazing. And that's Chayiv Adam Lirisis Atzma Kilu Yatzami Mitzrayim. We got to figure out our own Yitzias Mitzrayim.
That's right.
And that's the Seder experience. Beautiful.
That's the Seder experience.
Rabbi Nachman, you go all the way to the last part of the Haggadah. How do we keep our children on fire, excited, enthused, all the way till the late night end of our Seder?
By promising them a trip to Eretz Yisrael. What do you mean? I'll tell you. I think.
What do you do when you live in Eretz Yisrael?
What do you do? You know what you do? You sing. A lot of singing. But that's only for people who are musical. But you know what it is? I think what it comes down to, again, it comes down to enjoying being together with the family at a special time. It's something very unique. Last year, it was the first time I made a Seder. I always went to my in-laws and my parents. Until last year, unless I was away at a hotel leading, but if I was home, I didn't go, I didn't stay home. But I said, when I have son-in-laws, I'm staying home and leading my Seder. And now, Baruch Hashem, I have 2 son-in-laws, so I was home leading a Seder. And every member of the family enjoyed it so much, just being together, singing the songs that we know and love, talking the Torah, saying the stories. It's something so special. We didn't have to try to. It was just a beautiful, heartwarming experience. You don't have to. I believe you don't have to try hard. Don't try. Let it happen.
Beautiful.
Let it happen.
Rabbi Seltzer, could you give us a little teaser? One story that jumps out at you, your favorite story, that morsel that's going to want to make us long for more. Share something, and we'll conclude the interview with that.
All right. So I'll tell you. Two short things. Well, I'll tell you a little vart, Aruch HaShulchan, that I love. And it's an amazing vart. And he goes into, it's part of a bigger piece, which is all in the Haggadah. But the Aruch HaShulchan, in his Haggadah, he writes a very interesting thing. And he says that he talks about the baker and the butler in prison. Right? And he says, he has a question. He says, how could it be, if you go, let's say, to a fancy hotel, if you order the Citadel, let's say, and you order a cup of wine, nobody's bringing you a cup of wine with a fly in it. You're getting a roll. No one's bringing you a roll with a piece of wood or a stone in a roll. This is a palace of a king. There's 1,000 slaves. Their job is to go like this, that no fly should fall into wine. How could it be that in the kingdom, the kitchen of the king, such a thing could happen? And on the same day, what happened to this palace? What's going on over here? So the Aruch HaShulchan comes with an amazing chiddush. I'm just going to go he says that the butler and the baker were mortal enemies. They were both fighting for the king's favor. They both wanted a promotion. So what did they do? The butler, he sneaks into the bakery and he sticks a piece of wood into the bread. And the baker sneaks into the place where they pour the wine. And as they're bringing it out, he drops a fly in the cup. So both of them did to the other one. Right? It wasn't that why did it happen? It happened because they were fighting, because of sinas chinam, he says. That's why it happened. So then you have to go into who's worse. Is it worse to stick a piece of wood into bread? Or is it worse to drop a fly into a cup of wine? And who's worse? And Paro felt obviously that the fly in the wine was worse, which is why he put the baker to death. And he goes the whole thing. But he goes with this into sinas chinam. And he says, all this happened to show Yosef the power of sinas chinam. Look, you have two people in high positions, and they're endangering their lives. They're endangering the job to the king. They're putting the king's life, they're embarrassing the king. All for what? For sinas chinam, because they hate each other. And he says, what was the point? That Yosef should learn that when your brothers come back to you and you're released from prison, and you're going to become the king, and your brothers are going to stand in front of you, and they're going to beg for their lives, well, you have an option. You could say, I'm taking revenge for what you did to me. And it's not even sinas chinam. It's sinah for a good reason. Or you could show them avas chinam. You could show them avas chinam. You were the son of Rachel. Rachel wasn't involved. You weren't involved in Mechira. You were the one they sold. And he brings out the Nakud of avas chinam from this vart. It's a big vart. And it's a beautiful vart. I love this vart. I give it over in class, but it's a tremendous vart. And from there I talk about avas chinam and different stories. And Rebbe Youngreis, I bet, how she went around doing this and just unbelievable things. But I'll just tell you, I'll end off with one other Nakuda. And that is the story that happened to my son-in-law. And the story is, and I put this in by Shmaina, the Yemei Milah. Basically, the story he said over at my grandson's bris. He said the story. He said that it was Purim, and he was by his father's house, and it was right after they lost their grandfather, Shmuel Brandman, and his uncle was there from Chicago, and people came in collecting tzedakah, and this guy comes in. He's collecting. He just had a baby. And he's collecting for the bris. So one of my son-in-law's uncles said to this guy, I'll make you a deal. If you name your son Shmuel after my father, I'll pay for the whole bris. Not just pay for it. I'll make you a bris, and I'll give you money for the kid, and I'll give you money for his bar mitzvah. It's going to be amazing. So the guy got excited. He goes to call his wife. He's like, listen, we got this great offer. She's like, what's the name? He says, Shmuel. She goes, nah, I have another name. I don't want that name. I have another name. So he comes back all depressed. There's his offer. So my son-in-law, Naftali, went over to his uncle. He said, listen, Saba, his whole thing, he would have Dafka wanted to pay if he didn't want to give name after him. That would have Dafka been like, oh, you don't want to? Great, let me pay. He wouldn't have cared. Come on. Kids, in the end, his uncle said, you know what, I'm going to pay for it. And he's not just paid for it. He paid for it. He gave it a beautiful bris, music, meat, beautiful. Kitzah, so this guy was so thankful to my son-in-law. He made it happen. And he called him up a few days later. He says, you have to come to the bris. My son-in-law's in the mirror. And he's like, you got to come to the bris, to Bnei Brak. And it was pouring. But he said, you have to come. I know you're not supposed to invite to a bris, but you have to come. So my son-in-law said, okay, what can I do? He drove down there, and he comes to the bris. And the guy was so happy to see him there. He said, I'm giving you a bracha. You should have a baby. I'm the Avi Ben. I could give brachas. I'm giving you a bracha. So my son-in-law gets up at the bris. He says this story. And he goes, I want to tell you something. It is today 9 months to the day of that bracha, he said. And today we named our son Shmuel Brandman. And the Bala Simcha from Bnei Brak is here. And he pointed to it. And he stood up and he was smiling. And it was a beautiful story of Shmoina Gimei Milah. I put that there. It's like that's the end of the Haggadah. My son-in-law's story, my own grandson's story. And that's a beautiful, beautiful personal story. It's new. It's not from 100 years ago, but it's a beautiful, heartwarming story that just happened, and that's how we cap off the Haggadah. So, but there's so much more there. Baruch Hashem, it's a lot. Klal Yisrael, I hope everyone enjoys it. It's a beautiful Geschmacka Suda.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Seltzer. And Mitzvah Hashem, we look forward to joining you for the Seder, L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. Thank you for your time. It's always great schmoozing. Everyone should go out there, buy that Haggadah. It'll enhance your Pesach, the entire Pesach, beginning to end. And everyone loves a great story, so it's a no-brainer. Thank you so much, Rabbi Seltzer. Hatzlacha vayta.
Thank you so much. Kol Tov.